Hello everybody, and I hope you're having a blessed day. And I want to show you how to make lard from a very small amount of fat. I save my fat trimmings from pork chops or pork. This came, most of it, from a Boston butt roast. And I make lard from it. So you don't need much to make yourself a little bit of cooking fat. And cooking fats are getting very expensive, and so every little bit of money I can save or do things for myself helps. But I want to share what I do with other people, maybe to help them, because maybe they haven't seen or don't realize that just cutting fat trimmings off of your pork roast. I don't really use much chicken fat. Other people do. I know a lot of people that use goose fat. From geese. They raise geese for the fat. But what we do with this is we're going to cut this in some smaller pieces. And you're just going to cut through the fat. This piece right here is kind of thick. But you just want to, it doesn't have to all be even. It doesn't have to be perfect. But you do want to cut it in small pieces or smaller. And you want to cook it on a very, very low heat to start. Because you don't want it to burn. You want it to start to render out its water and a little bit of its lard with it. And I'm going to get this all cut up here. And then we'll come back. You see, I'm just cutting that into smaller bits and pieces here. You see that? And we'll get this cut up and come back. Okay, I have the fat. There's a little bit of meat, but that doesn't matter. And I'm just going, I have it on the lowest flame possible. Now in the beginning, you want to turn this and move it quite a bit in the very beginning, because you don't want it to stick to your pan. This is one reason I chose cast iron, because cast iron doesn't really stick. At least mine doesn't. I have it nicely seasoned. But you want it on the lowest possible heat so that it slowly pulls the fat, cooks it, but slowly. And this takes time. It's not done overnight. When I used to raise pigs, I used to get 5 gallons of lard. Oh, I'm so glad I'm over those days. That was some of the hardest work. I know how my grandmother must have really felt at butchering time when they butchered the hogs, because that's what you did, is you rendered the lard. And I have these 2 huge copper pots. They're humongous. They have 2 large handles on them, one at each end, or each side, I should say. And I used to throw the fat in that and cook it outside till I got my lard, which would take me about, I don't know, a week, because I had so much. But you just want to keep an eye on it in the beginning and keep stirring it to slowly render that lard. Let me move my camera up here so you can see a little bit better. But now we're going to keep doing this. I don't want to keep you on here the whole time, because, this will take a couple hours, or an hour at least, I think. And I save the little bits of fat that have the meat from it too. Put a little salt on it, and that stuff is delicious. But I'm going to keep going here, and I'll bring you back when I got my lard ready. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes, and I don't know if you can see this, but see how it's already working the lard off? Which means now I'm going to turn the temperature up, or the fire I should say, to about medium instead of low. Okay? And you don't have to watch this constantly, but you do want to stir it every so often, because some of this will start to brown, These fat pieces, now see, like that's a little bit of piece of meat right here. Can you see that? Hopefully. That will get nice and brown, kind of crisp up. And these fat pieces will decrease in size and become smaller and crispier. My dad would used to call those cracklings. But I don't think they're really cracklings, because to me cracklings were the kind that had the skin on them, and he'd say, no, all of these little fat pieces are cracklings. So, okay, Dad. That's what I used to say. But we're going to keep going with this. But remember, this is lard that's on the bottom of this, underneath all of that. And this will get smaller as it cooks, like I said. But this is lard that you can use for eggs. I use it for refried beans, whatever. A pork chop if you want to fry one. Chicken leg if you just want to fry. You know, we have a tendency to use far too much cooking oils when we cook, and it's not necessary. Just in fried potatoes. We'll see how much we end up with in the end, okay? And I'll bring you back. Okay, I shook my camera there. Don't you see this? Now this has been cooking for about, I don't know, 40 minutes? Yeah, about 40 minutes. Don't you look at how much lard I'm getting off of this already. See that? And we still have a ways to go, because as you can see, like, okay, for instance, if I can bring this over here toward the camera. You see that big piece? See how white that still looks? It's got a lot of lard left to render out. Now, like I said, this came off of a Boston butt roast, just one. And I trimmed it. And I put the stuff in the freezer, the fat, because you end up with just a big piece of brown fat on the bottom of your roast, or maybe on the top, whichever way you cook it. And you just end up kind of cutting it off, you know, throwing it away in the end. But this is a good way to make yourself some fat to cook with. This is making lard. So we're going to keep going at this. As you can see, look at that. There's quite a bit of lard in there already. Now, granted, it's not 5 gallons or not even a half gallon probably, or nothing close to that. But it's enough to do you for a little while in an emergency. You know, this could be done outside on an open fire in the same skillet. You could take the same skillet right here and put it on open fire outside and render your lard. But we'll come back when it's more done, or when it's done, okay? Okay, it's almost ready. You see how they're starting to turn brown? And you see a lot of little bubbles on the top? That is the water rendering off from the fat. That's what you see all those little bubbles there? That's the water cooking out of the fat. And it's almost ready, but not quite. But look at how much lard I've already gotten from this. And you can save your lard, okay, or I should say your fat, the scraps of your fat. Don't mix them. Don't put bacon fat and pork fat like this from a roast, and chicken fat or beef fat. No, just this. But you can put it in a Ziploc bag, your fat, and store it 3 or 4 months until you've got enough accumulated to do something like this, if you only get a small amount. Pork steak. If you buy pork steak, trim the fat around your pork steak. Pork steak has a lot of fat all throughout the meat. Doesn't need all that fat on the edge. Trim that off and put it in a Ziploc bag and save it. We're going to keep going here, and then we'll come back when it's ready. Okay, you see how all your little bits and pieces there have floated to the top? I got a paper plate over here, and I'm going to just drain this. And these are the little cracklings. Then I'm going to put some salt on. My family's already been digging in this, okay? They wanted, they couldn't wait. They were like, just pull out the brownest pieces you can find and put some salt on them. But you see how much that did? That's quite a bit. And then you got all these wonderful little bits of fat with a little bit of meat on them. And all that just from some fat from a pork roast. And it was a very small one, okay? It was not a big pork roast at all. It was a small one. Okay, now I'm going to let this cool off. I'm going to strain it because some of that has fallen to the bottom. And we'll see how much we've got here, okay? So we'll come back one more time. Well, here it is, folks. This is the lard. 1 full pint. That will do me for a little while. For over a week at least. Maybe even 2. Now, if you have more meat in it than I did, I had a very small amount. But you want to use a strainer so that you're not getting a lot of those little meat pieces that brown and go to the bottom. And when you kill a pig, most people, when they butcher it, they don't use meat in it at all. They use fat. But, you know, doesn't matter. Because those little bits and pieces taste absolutely wonderful. And you get your lard. And you get some meaty, kind of like cracklings in the middle with fat and meat. Same thing. Well, God bless you guys. Hope you enjoyed this. And have a blessed day. And may God supply all your needs.